Hi, this is Mike from OPST. Back on the water here to show you some tips and tricks, continuing what we've been doing for the last few months. It's colder out now. It's getting into winter steelhead season. Fish are slower, a little more lethargic. You got to get your presentation a little more consistent and a little better, a little closer to the fish. They're not going to move as far as they would at, say, summer runs. And part of that is working a run that you're confident in. But the next thing is not making the same cast every single time. Every hole is a little bit different. Every hole can be approached differently each time. Each cast can be different. We're talking about today's angle of attack. So if you're in your typical cast and you've got your downstream swing, casting downstream, it's good cast, catch lots of fish. But you also will miss fish because you haven't gotten down to where they are in a deeper run. So if you take your next cast and you throw more straight out in front of you, let that line sink, let your sink tip do its work, let your fly get down there. You've changed your angle of attack now, and that can bring that fly right into the wheelhouse of a fish that you just barely missed and it didn't see it. And next option is, if you get into a deeper run, cast upstream just a little bit. There's nothing wrong with it. It works really well. Control your line. Don't make big mins and move your head. Keep your running line under control. Let it work until it gets into that kick, and then let it kick. That's the deepest that you're gonna fish. You can do all this by fishing T11 and T14 and not having the hassle of T17 or T20 and still approaching the same fish just at a different way. And it'll make your life easier. It's funner to fish T11 or T14 than it is the heavier stuff. It's more forgiving. And like I said, you can still get to those fish that are deeper. So we're gonna show you a few different casts here and changing your angle of attack. Your standard downstream cast, it's fine, nothing wrong with it. It gives you one angle, but a lot of times you're like, I know there's a fish there, or you got a feeling there's a fish there, and you keep working it, you think you change your fly, and maybe your buddy comes in and picks one up behind you, and you're like, oh, it was his fly. It might be, or it might also just be that he changed his angle of attack on that fish, and that fish didn't see your fly, and your fly was fine, but his cast, instead of being downstream, went straight out. So here I'm working straight out. My stuff's sinking all the way through here. I'm gonna follow it through, and then in here I'm gonna kick it over, and now I'm gonna let it work. So that's gonna change my angle. It's gonna get my fly deeper, and that could literally be from a fly that's here to a fly that's now here in front of a fish. And that's the difference between catching a fish or just missing a fish. You get into a deeper run that you know you're like, man, I just don't feel like I'm getting to the fish. It's the same thing. Change your angle again and go upstream. Throw up that way. Let it work now. Let it work until it gets down to this part of it. Now your fly's sinking the whole time. You notice I'm not moving my head. I'm not moving my fly. I'm just letting it work. So it's just sinking that whole time until you get to right here, and now you're working it again. You let it swing out. Those are 3 different depths. Your fly is gonna work the same piece of water at 3 different depths. So if you miss a fish that just didn't see your stuff and your next cast is more upstream and you got bit, you're like, well, that just literally went through its wheelhouse that before your cast would have missed it, and it did miss it. So approach every hole with multiple cast ideas. Don't just be repetitive and throw the same cast and do the same thing and expect different results, because you got to find that perfect fish for that cast to work, and it will. But at the same time, if you add a straight across cast or an upstream cast into the mix with it, now you've made 2 presentations into a run back to back, and then change it up. Take your steps down, make a cast, change it up, make cast down or cast up, and every step you go down, you can split those casts, or you can stay in one spot and, like, I'm confident in this spot, change your cast right there, make another cast in the same footsteps, different approach, see what happens. Then make your steps down and do it again. That'll increase your odds of getting in a wheelhouse of the fish, and it'll increase your fish numbers versus changing flies, changing sink tips, and worrying about all that. It's more getting that fly in front of the fish. So the more you can do to put that fly in front of the fish, the more hookups and the more grabs you're likely to have.